Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome again to another live here this morning. And good to be with you, and waiting for a few of you to come on before we get started this morning. I think you'll find this a fascinating topic. At least I do. Good morning to Nativity this morning, and good to have you on with us this morning. And Rosa, nice to have you on. Okay. So, yeah, we got a good crowd already. And Francine, bonjour. Marin, how are you this morning? And good to have folks on with us this morning. Pauline from Newfoundland. Pauline, nice to have you. Nick, Laura, good morning. Yolande, bonjour. Okay. Ermi, Janelle, and Dave. We're going to have a great topic this morning, and I think you'll find it fascinating. Joy, Angeline. Okay, so we're going to get going here very, very shortly. And Marilyn, Ginny, Sharon. Yep. Richard. Hey, how's my buddy? Good to have you on with us. Donna, good morning. Keith, good morning. And Dave. Steady Eddies, you guys come on with us, and we appreciate that on a daily basis. Okay, so let's talk about, it's interesting that when you're looking at, and Lucy and Jeanette and Maria and Susan from Thunder Bay and Todd, good morning. I hate to miss people, but I will go on afterwards, and Diane, I will go on afterwards and just say hello to you, okay? And remember, Friday is question and answer Fridays, so we're going to do that this week. But let me talk about something that is very, very significant and had a huge influence in the world of medicine. There's two Frenchmen, actually. Louis Pasteur and Antoine. When my mother was upset with me, she'd call me Antoine. Tony. My name is Anthony, but in French it's Antoine, right? And there was a guy in France, a scientist, a microbiologist of the day. He lived, I think, from 1816. I'm just looking at it, 1908. And what they were, you had two theories, and I think you probably know Louis Pasteur. You certainly heard of his name, and pasteurization. And he was really the father of infectious disease. And Louis Pasteur, developed some vaccines and pasteurization, and his theory of germ theory won the day. But it's interesting that even back in the in the 1800s, the germ theory came out in 1861. Why am I telling you this? Because Pasteur won a battle in medicine with Antoine Béchamp. Tony Béchamp. I don't know if anybody ever called him Tony or Anthony, but he was Antoine. And anyway, it's interesting because Béchamp was light years ahead of his time. And as these two theories, the germ theory and the host theory, even in the 1800s, in the 1860s, there was a battle in medicine between these two theories. It's fascinating when you read about it. And medicine followed Pasteur. And we see it today, especially with COVID. The virus is everything. So Pasteur would be getting high fives today if he was still alive, because he believed the virus or bacteria, they were everything. Whereas Antoine Béchamp believed that you were everything. That, and Béchamp didn't even know what we know today. Béchamp didn't know, you're looking at in behind here, a microscope. Well, go back into the middle 1860s or whatever. They had no idea comparatively to what we know today. And Béchamp said in those days that it was your immune system. It was your terrain. It's whether you were a good host for bacteria or viruses. But he didn't win the day. As a matter of fact, if you look at old, microbiology textbooks, if they even mention him, he would be mentioned with somewhat of disdain, because they saw him as an old quack. And Pasteur was their hero. And, Pasteur did some good things. I mean, some very good things. Again, pasteurization and, vaccines and, getting your body prepared for, giving you a little antibody or a little bit of an antigen, and then your body develops some immunity and you have a vaccine. And, okay. And, especially in the early 20th century, and with the advent of antibiotics and anti-malarial drugs, and did some wonderful things. But what was lost was the science and the theory of the host. And that what side of the equation I fall on. It's you. And, now we know that you have about 30 trillion cells in your body. Okay? And doctors are focused in on those cells. They want to change your genes, and your gene therapy and immunotherapy, and there's some wonderful things for sure, including antibiotics. I don't know where we would be without antibiotics. The greatest discovery of the 20th century were antibiotics, saved millions and millions of people's lives. So you can't dismiss what Pasteur and others were able to accomplish. Absolutely. But Béchamp was thrown to the wolves back then because they negated his work. And he was saying, and he didn't know the numbers, but we know the numbers today. And even then, I'm sure we're just giving you a guesstimate that you have 30 trillion cells, and yet you have 40 trillion bacteria in your body. You have more bacteria in your body than you have cells. You have about 300, this is the estimate. Think about this for a minute. You have about 380 trillion viruses on your body and in your body. And so you're always going to be around viruses. And Béchamp was right about the importance of your terrain, your cells, your immune system, how you've made an environment either pro viruses or bacteria or against them. You develop an immunity. And so you've got three players in these bacteria, viruses, fungi. You got three players. You have good bacteria and you have bad bacteria. We call it your microbiome, and now there's a microbiome project. I think, what are they calling it now? I think it was developed, the human microbiome project by the National Institute of Health, and I think they're actually doing it. They have a division at Harvard University, and they're studying bacteria. And they realize that you got good guys and bad guys. And without enough good guys, it's called you lose, because there are, there's three players. You've got, housekeepers, good bacteria, and you got villains. And most of this, by the way, not all of it, but 80% of all that I'm talking about happens within your gut. And Hippocrates, imagine, 2,000 years ago, he wasn't a dummy. Think of that. The father of medicine, Hippocrates, said that all disease starts in the gut. That was 2,000 years ago. But with the battle that went on between Bechamp and Pasteur, medicine went in one direction and forgot about the other direction. Didn't talk about your immune system anymore. They talked about vaccines and medications to combat viruses or bacteria, especially bacteria, antibiotics. Antibiotics do nothing for viruses, but antivirals and, anti-malarial drugs, like they're talking now, there's a big discussion, of course, between, certain doctors on the effectiveness of hydrochloroquine. And I told you why. Hydrochloroquine has sort of been given a bad reputation, even though it seems to be quite promising with COVID. Hydrochloroquine costs 65 cents a dose. The pharmaceutical companies don't make any more money on it. There's no money in it because the patent ran out years ago. And doctors use it because it's been shown to, it's very anti-malarial, but they use it in inflammation like in rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. But it's got a bad rap because there are some doctors that said they used it with a great effectiveness. And I told you a few weeks ago about a study that had to be recanted. It was almost unheard of. That was published in the American Journal of Medicine. And they had to recant the story because they said, oh, hydrochloroquine doesn't work. But it comes back to really to what I'm telling you this morning about that battle that went on in medicine 150 years ago between Pasteur and Bechamp. But now we're knowing that Bechamp wasn't far from wrong. He was onto it. He didn't understand everything about the microbiome, but he talked about it. And Hippocrates talked about it. That in your gut, especially, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. 80%. And it's in behind a little single cell layer of a wall called your endothelium. And there's your 80% of your immune system right in behind that little wall. And you know, if you don't have a good immune system, and the people who die from COVID, if you died from COVID, it wasn't the virus. It wasn't the virus that you died from. You died from an underlying condition. If you were in a senior home, an extended care home or whatever, all across Europe and in North America, they're very vulnerable. But was it the virus? No. Because the flu virus kills old people every year too. But what is it about old people? Their immune system. Their immune system is not. As they get older, they don't make the same amount of T cells and their natural killer cells. And the senior population is very much at risk for this virus, but they're at risk for any virus. You can get an outbreak in every winter, it seems. There's an outbreak and they close down some of the extended care homes in Sudbury here. Every year, there's an outbreak of the flu. Very dangerous for seniors because of their decreased immune system. And I've been explaining to you, giving you the news behind the news, that if you are, you have that behind you. This is just, this is 5 pounds of fat. Okay? So when you, ladies, when you tell me you lost, Doc, I only lost 5 pounds on the reset. Look what came out of your body. 5 pounds of muscle I can put in my fist. When you do the reset, you're losing fat. And the first place it'll take it out of is your liver. You're emptying the suitcase of this. This is a very dangerous, not always visible, by the way. Ladies, you might have a little belly, but a lot of times it's silent. You don't even know this, but it's packed up your suitcase, the liver. And what they're finding, if you have this, you have 5 pounds of fat. Your immune system won't work as well. It affects your immunity. How does it do that? You don't make the same antibodies as someone that doesn't have that inside their body. And that's what they found out in the United Kingdom in 2018, that people that had that 5 pounds, the flu shot didn't work for them. And every year we scratch our heads. The flu shot has only got about a 40% effective rate. Every year. On its good years, they get up to about 50%. But nobody talks about why the flu shot is only effective in 40%. And the United Kingdom it almost slapped me in the face because somebody finally said it. That if you have dangerous fat, visceral fat, this is visceral fat. It's around your organs, especially the liver. It will decrease your immunity. You will not make antibodies for the flu. And guess what? Let's separate the seniors for a minute. Take them right out of the equation. They just don't have the immunity. As you get older, you just don't have the immunity that you used to have. You just don't. So they're very vulnerable. But anybody that was younger that got sick, they had what they called pre-existing conditions, but they never said, yeah, diabetes and all that, but they never said why. Well, it wasn't, it was this. It was that fat in the body, because that fat does several things. It releases inflammation. It's an organ unto itself. It releases what we call cytokines. And the body goes into an inflammatory response. And then the fact that you're not even making antibodies to the virus, wow, that can be very dangerous. You see, Béchamp was right. Your immunity, if you have enough good bacteria, if you have enough vitamin D, the sun, that supercharges your T cells. They have a little antenna. Your T cells have a little antenna that want 100% the sun, the vitamin D from the sun. It charges their batteries, the same with natural killer cells. That's your immune system, folks. And your good bacteria. It's your immune system. They develop B vitamins. Do you know that's how you absorb B vitamins? By your good bacteria? You need bacteria. You need viruses. Your body is made to live in that environment. So don't over clean. The best thing you can do for yourselves is empty this out of your liver. Not only for what it'll do for your heart, because you're going to lower your triglycerides and elevate your HDL. That's heart. But metabolic syndrome makes you 100 times more susceptible to viruses and bacteria. It's your immune system. It's your terrain. It's fascinating when you study these things and you see. And then I was telling you, I think last week, about what sugar does. Sugar stops your T cells and your natural killer cells. They go to sleep. They have a siesta when they should be fighting. They're asleep while your immune system should be activated in the presence of a virus or bacteria, invasive. And your immune system, you're eating sugar, you're just putting it to sleep. Now you get a double whammo. You got fat releasing inflammation and decreasing your immune system. You don't have enough friendly bacteria. You don't have enough vitamin D. You don't have enough vitamin A. The invisible mask, you need that. You need that. It's not that complicated when you get down to it. Make sure you have enough good bacteria. And the thing that I of course I'm off on a rabbit trail, but the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, like you have good and bad. There's a war. Okay? You ever read the story of David and Goliath? Well, before he came down for about a month, Israel's army was here and the Philistines were here, and they looked at each other all day long, and they just stood and stared at each other, and they didn't fight. They just looked at each other. That's what good and bad bacteria do. The problem is when you don't have enough good bacteria, it's the invasive army. It's fungus. It's yeast takes over the body. And this makes you much more susceptible to viruses and bacteria. And you never hear anybody talking about that. The fungus, the Candida albicans that gets into your bloodstream because it gets past your leaky gut. Leaky gut is not having enough, your barrier, you don't have enough good bacteria. It's really simple. And what can destroy your good bacteria? Well, antibiotics. You're feeding the bad guys when you're eating crappy carbs, and crappy carbs is a double whammo of poison. Because not only do they rapidly turn into sugar, never mind the sugar that's added to it, but they contain vegetable oils from canola or safflower or whatever. And they're in the middle aisles of your grocery stores, and young people, especially today, they live on that stuff. Hydrogenated oils, PUFAs, P-U-F-A. A little S at the end. What are PUFAs? Polyunsaturated fatty acids. You find it in margarine, and you find it in salad dressings. And anything that you don't have to put in the fridge until you open it. Margarine, I invite you to try this. Put it outside. Open up the tin or whatever it's in. I invite you to do this little experiment, and bugs won't even fly around it. They're smarter than we are. Because what those vegetable oils do is they destroy your good bacteria. And then you add sugar on top, and you're not only you're feeding your bad bacteria, but you're feeding yeast that creeps into your body. You see, your body it's unbelievable how smart it is. Fearfully and wonderfully made. Think about that for a minute. Your immune system, it knows exactly what to do. But as we've talked about, your immune system is dependent on what you're eating. What are you feeding your good guys? Most people spend the vast majority of their day feeding their bad guys. Kids today, they live on foods that feed their bad bacteria. And yeast. Yeast loves sugar. It demands sugar. You want to know why you get cravings? It demands sugar. And this is why when I put somebody on the reset, I said, your candida, it's going to hate your guts. Because you're not feeding it anymore. You're not feeding your bad bacteria anymore. You're only going to feed the good guys. And you ought to be taking a probiotic too. You know me about that. That is an essential part of your health, is feeding and rebuilding and replenishing your good bacteria. Go play in the garden today and take your gloves off and get some dirt on you in the soil. It's good for you, man. It's good for you. And don't constantly wash your children, or, I know they tell us to wash your hands. And I'm not against that, by the way. You go to the bathroom, wash your hands. But let your kids go out and play in the mud. Let them get dirty, and don't overclean. And don't use those hand sanitizers. That goes in right into you know what that kills? That kills your good guys. You got good guys even on, you see I'm touching my face? You got good bacteria here. You know what? Oh, you got acne. Let's clean the living life out of that. That's the worst thing you can do. Let your good bacteria clean you up. But you see, that's Pasteurism and not Béchampism. Pasteurism is wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Stay 6 feet apart. Wear a mask. Don't touch your face. Use antibacterial soaps and clean 24 hours a day and clean your house and clean. People were drinking bleach, gargling with bleach. They were so scared of the virus. That's Pasteurism. Be more Béchampism. Take care of your body inside and out. Very important. This is where I come from. This is, if you look at this battle, this war that took place, almost a couple 100 years ago, and you see what came out of it. The pharmaceutical industry, God bless them. They brought some wonderful things. But as I was telling you yesterday, when it comes to diabetes, they're not looking for a drug to cure diabetes. They're going to manage diabetes. And that's what they're into. So you got to take care of yourself. The message is for each and every one of us to look at life a little bit differently and say, you know what, I can't control what other people do. You're a parent or a grandparent. You can influence, but you can't control. I know parents that have made their homes like sugar-free homes. I used to get many autistic children and children with ADD and ADHD. And I used to look at they come into the office with their parents, and I'd look at them and I'd look at the kid was smart. It's amazing how smart kids are. And I'd tell them, you got leaky gut. It's giving you leaky brain. You got to cut your sugars way back. You have to learn even at a young age to read a label. And then I turned to the parents. And you see this finger? I give them a little bit of a lecture. I said, you gotta make your home, change your treats, change your food. Because that little guy that you brought me, or that little girl, they're a canary in the coal mine. Their system is so fragile, and sugar is feeding their bad bacteria, and they have leaky gut, and it's going right up to their brain, and it's crossing the blood-brain barrier, and it's affecting their brain. Do you know how many times I had patients that suffered from depression? And I used to tell them, I said, look, 80% of your hormones, not only bacteria, are found in your gut. And it has everything to do with those bacteria because they help your body to make serotonin and dopamine and GABA. And it'll in your gut will affect the brain. And I said, you happen to be a canary in the coal mine and your depression. I said, what? The number one thing you got to do, probiotics. But I said, you have to feed your good bacteria and quit feeding your bad guys and quit feeding the third invasive army, which is your yeast in your body. I was a kind of doctor that saw yeast behind every tree. Fungus. It's invasive. It will take over your body. You got a rash on your skin, you got eczema, you got psoriasis. Well, look at it inside out. You have leaky gut and you've got a fungal infection. 100%. And this is why you've got to be a follower now of Antoine, my French name. When kids used to call me Antoine, they tried to tease me. Oh boy, I was not a happy puppy. I didn't like that name. I wanted you to call me Tony when I was a kid. I didn't like Antoine. And when the teachers called me Antoine, you know, I thank my dad because he sent me to a French school, even though my mom didn't speak French. He said, son, you're going to be bilingual, you hear me? Oh, I didn't like it, but I'm glad he did, right? My dad was a wise guy. But you need to be a follower of Béchamp, Antoine Béchamp, who was considered a quack back in his day. Kind of interesting, eh? When you look at the background of where we are today and why we're there. Of the influence of Louis Pasteur. Smart boy, no doubt. Okay, so Friday, question and answer. Send in your questions. Happy to answer them. We'll try and cover it all. If you get a chance, share this. Friends and family. We appreciate that very much. The more we share on Facebook, the more Facebook shares it for us. And to get the message out. Okay, so we appreciate it. Okay, love you guys. Prayerfully, we'll talk to you tomorrow.